Good morning and welcome to Our Black News. My name is Don Allen. I'm joined today by special guest host from his palatial estate in South Minneapolis, Mr. Anthony Scott. And also we have another special guest running for mayor of Brooklyn Park, who's going to be with us today, Mr. Hollis J. Winston, right there on the bottom of your screen there. But first, we want to get into Anthony. You won an award last week for your book. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
We did. You're able to hear me now. I'm taking it.
Yes, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Yes, our book, Minnesota's Black Community in the 21st Century, has just won the R. Wayne Pace Human Resource Development Book of the Year Award. We were given this award last week, one of two books that, and this is a nationwide competition for the Human Resource Development book. So our book won first place. I'll be getting a very prestigious plaque. And I'm also being contacted by several news media and news outlets to talk about our work. So yeah, we're very proud of that. We're very proud to bring that back to Minneapolis and to show that there is a positive side here. Sure, we have the George Floyd. We have disparities here. But by looking at our books, and we're trying to put our best foot forward, and we're still there, and we're still going to make this thing happen. So yeah, we got that prestigious award, and actually there's a video. If you go to their site, the National Human Research Development Organization, you'll be able to see the award ceremony where they granted us, myself, our board, my sister, Dr. Shonda Scott, who is Harvard, Columbia trained PhD, and also Dr. Charles Crutchfield, who was on our board, Dr. Charles Crutchfield III. And you'll be able to see in its entirety. And if you like a book, please get in touch with me. I'm running out of books. The books I have here at the house are very slim, but you can order them on Amazon. You can order them through the Historical Society. I don't have a book in front of me. I don't know. Can you see this? I guess you can't really.
You're actually holding a cell phone up. No, we can't see anything because that looks like an Android. And Androids are.
Oh, okay.
No, we can't see
anyway.
it.
But anyway, yeah. So
email me. Go ahead.
We're proud of the book, and I was hoping you could see some excerpts of it here. I don't know here. It's a little bit.
Yeah, I see a little. We see a little bit of it there.
Yeah, oh, wow. That's the cover. Minnesota's Black Community in the 21st Century. And again, there's a springboard of the books that Dad did. The Scott Collection, which is 500 pages. This is the encyclopedia of the Black community in the Twin Cities. This is the encyclopedia. It's being used in libraries, colleges, schools. I'll be speaking and hopefully being an adjunct professor. And I'm not really at liberty to name these schools right now because there's a great competition for me. But all of our work is based on the Scott Collection. And I encourage you to get a copy of this book also.
Okay, hey, thank you for that. Hey, there's a lot going on, and your favorite president, 45, they're wasting a lot of taxpayer dollars doing this impeachment thing, and I just want to ask your quick opinion. Is it worth it?
Well, I actually saw, Don, your hero, 45. I actually saw him on TV.
My hero.
And he actually gave a heartfelt message, and I think it was really directed directly at you. And what he said was, this is what he said. No, I think it was directed at Don Allen. What he said was, we love you. You're very special. I cherish your support. But yeah, this is a clown show. This is something that, why in the world they're wasting time? Everybody has seen what he's done. He incited these people. He got on podiums around the world, around the country, to say, come on, take our country back. You've got to be tough. You've got to do. He incited these people, and so everyone's seen it. So I don't know why they're all haranguing about is he guilty or not. Of course he's guilty. He's guilty of sin. Why they don't go ahead and do it?
Yeah. This is just like the Russia probe. Okay, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna predict. I'm not even gonna put it in the envelope this time. Here's what's gonna happen. At the end of the day, they're not going to have enough support by GOP legislators in the Senate to to push this thing over. But their main thing is they want to censor him so he does not run in 2024 or doesn't try to run. And that's their main concern, because if you get 70 million people sympathetic to your cause, you know, I had a hard time picking who I was going to vote for, but I really like Kamala Harris, and so I'll just leave it at that. But the thing is,
yeah, right.
If this doesn't work, and what the Democrats are trying to do without due process is push him to the curb. Now, I'm not cheerleading for Trump or anything like that. I just don't like the process, because these are white folks going after another white guy to say, hey, we're going to put you in your place. We're going to shut you down. We're going to make sure that you can't run again. They've been doing that to the black community for the last 400 years. Okay. And we have to be able to see through that, look at it, be rational, cognitive of what's going on, and make sure that, you know, our voices are heard, which right now they're not. I mean, you heard him, Anthony, all week. Constitution, Constitution, Constitution. The Constitution says this: we must keep our republic wholesome, moral, absolute. I said, give me a break. When the Constitution was written, people of color, especially black people, were property. So they're not speaking on our behalf at all whatsoever. But anyway, that's all the time I want to spend on that, because I think it's a clown show, like you said earlier. And I wish we could move past this. I wish we could fix education and do some other things. Go ahead, Anthony. It looks like you want to say something.
Well, only Don. You know, the analogy is you know, I mean, surprisingly spot on. But you know, when we look at here in our local area, what is going on with the George Floyd and all this, you know, we're going to have trials, and then March 8th, people are just on pins and needles as what's going to happen when the officer goes to trial. I mean, we saw what happened. The world has already seen him kill this man. We've already seen this. I mean, it's been shown all over the world many times. What is the argument to this? What kind of, there is no defense to this. I mean, everybody, and plus there's eyewitnesses that were at the scene. Eyewitnesses, Don.
And you're talking about,
how in the world is there any conflict or anything? The man killed the man. Let's go ahead and let him go through the system, and there's no defense to this. But they continue to throw this. And so this is all, to me, is somewhat tied together, because March 8th is going to be a real D-Day, and I'm hoping that we can get Jonathan on here to really kind of talk about some of that, because Jonathan is going to be on the case. You can be sure of that.
Yeah. And
but we've already seen what happened. And there's eyewitnesses, Don. Eyewitnesses were at the scene and taped it and videoed it. So,
and I just want to say that Jonathan is on assignment today, and he will be back with us next week or in the middle of the week. But this George Floyd thing is huge. All eyes on Minneapolis, Hennepin County, the legal system. But, you know, again, I'm going to stick with this. Two of those cops it was their fourth day on the job. They were listening to Chauvin. Chauvin is a trainer. And if he's been abusive, which he has been proven, and he's been doing this all along, what is he telling his rookies that come in? If you're a rookie on the police force and you don't do what your chief or your boss or whoever your patrol lead says, as in any job, you are at risk of being reassigned or fired if you don't have tenure yet. And none of these cops had locked in tenure. They're out on training, basically. But that's neither here nor there.
Don, on that goes back to the people that stormed the Capitol. That goes back to them saying, we just followed orders. We didn't do anything. We just did. They tried that at Nuremberg. Nuremberg tried to say that too. It didn't work then, and it's not going to work now.
Okay. Well, we have someone hanging out in the studio that we want to get on here. It's Mr. Hollis J. Winston. He's running for mayor of Brooklyn Park, and this was a last minute thing because I want to do another show on one of my other programs with Mr. Winston, just kind of get into detail, but I felt that it was important to get his name out there in the community, and he was nice enough and not afraid of us, because most candidates when you say, hey, you want to come on Our Black News, they go, oh, are you going to grill us? No, we're very professional here, and we want to make sure that black candidates, qualified black candidates that are running for office in Minnesota, can use this platform at their leisure, because we're not charging anything. We've never charged anything, and we never will charge a dime for you as a Black candidate in Minnesota, Republican, Green, Independent, Democrat, doesn't matter, to come on here and talk. So, Mr. Wilson, welcome. Winston, that's my brother's name, his first name. Welcome to our show. Welcome to Our Black News.
I appreciate you guys having me on, and I think I never had an issue with coming on your show or even jumping on your page and disagreeing with you, because I think we know the African American community is not a monolith, and so we need different ideas to percolate up, and this is part of that, this exchange.
So let me ask you this, Mr. Winston, what's going on in Brooklyn Park? And let me frame the question. I've watched over the last 25 years, Hennepin County and a couple of state agencies move a lot of Section 8 people out to Brooklyn Park. I watched big developments go up in Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center. I didn't see a whole lot of a few jobs out there, but you're running for mayor of Brooklyn Park. What is it that needs to keep going, needs to be changed, or needs to be fixed in your eyes? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I would say, this folks coming out on Section 8, or folks moving out there to start, because some of the homes are more affordable. That doesn't bother me. I think the issues that Brooklyn Park are specifically dealing with right now is COVID-19, and whether people believe it's real or a hoax, right? Until we get our arms around it, it's going to be difficult for businesses to survive. Frontline workers are at risk. So I think that's one of the biggest things. And in Brooklyn Park, we have a ton of people that are, nurses and CNAs and folks that are, going out there and doing that type of work. So one, I think we need to make sure that we get folks vaccinated. We need to get the information out there. We need to let people know how safe it is. But two, I got three priorities. And the second one is, just community police relations, right? So if you ask different folks, different communities, they'll have different takes on what's going on with the police. What I say to this is that, crime in Brooklyn Park has spiked. And until we have much more of a community interaction. And so what I mean is, a police officer getting out the car, walking the beat, understanding what's going on in different apartment complexes. If the child has autism, understanding exactly where they live, what they're dealing with. If a kid is struggling and they're living with grandmother because the parents are going through something, having an understanding about that, so when they get that call, they have context. I think we need to get back to that. And sometimes that seems to disappear when diversity appears, but it needs to reappear. And that's how we kind of get a hold of that. And then the third thing is small businesses. So the issue with that, we have brought a ton of housing out there, and it doesn't do much for the tax base. And what I mean is just not just Section 8, but just homes. And we haven't done a great job of bringing businesses, small businesses, large businesses. When we do bring them out here, we give tax breaks. And so our revenue structure in terms of what we get isn't very diversified in Brooklyn Park. But then we don't have a ton of local jobs for folks in Brooklyn Park. And those jobs that we do have, locals are not necessarily connected to them. So those would be the priorities. That's what I think would put Brooklyn Park on the right track. But there's also a lot, that I love about Brooklyn Park.
I'm sorry, I had my microphone off. But how is does Brooklyn Park, and I'm not aware, we're in Minneapolis and St. Paul, but does Brooklyn Park have a challenge with contract compliance with minority ethnic contractors? Is there civil rights department, if they have one, functional? How is that working out there?
So there is a I want to say Human Rights Commission, right? And I don't think they've turned a ton of their focus to the contracting. So even with unions, there's not a ton of PLA agreements out here with unions, and there's not a ton of contracts in terms of bringing on POC or BIPOC businesses. That is not a focus. And for me, part of my regular day job is I advocate for legislation that helps BIPOC businesses, right? And for me, that's one way for people of color to get into the I want to say business system or ecosystem is when you have the government say, okay, we're going to help provide some of these smaller contracts to people of color businesses so they can understand how the system works, they can get involved with the system, and now we're creating a much more diverse supplier base. But we don't focus on that at all in Brooklyn Park. And if I'm elected, that would be one of the things that we would work on.
Okay, sounds good. So, Anthony, do you have a question for Mr. Winston?
Well, I do, and I just want to commend you, Mr. Winston, for getting into the game. I mean, it's like one of the things my dad used to say is, I don't want to change the game, just let me play. And I think that we need to have our voices heard, and we need to have people that are willing to stand up. But I do have just a quick question about the Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center area. And this Don, I think Don will commend me for this. I just sent, by Valentine's Day, I just sent some flowers to my sister-in-law. And she lives in Brooklyn Center. So how you like that, Don? I mean, how you like me now? I actually sent flowers to my sister, my lovely sister-in-law. But
you're saying, wait, hold up. You're saying that like I'm supposed to send her some flowers. I don't even know your sister-in-law. Okay? Quit tripping.
No, my question is, though, I've never really, as long as I've lived in the Twin Cities, many, many, many years, I've never known what is the difference between Brooklyn Park in Brooklyn Center, and where are the cutoffs? Is there anything? I know you may need a map to address it right at this moment, but I never have really known when I'm in Brooklyn Center or Brooklyn Park. They seem to be so enmeshed with each other.
Yeah, it's right near the border of trying to think of the street, like you have Brooklyn Boulevard and then the Highway 94. So like right in that area is where it switches from Brooklyn Center to Brooklyn Park. So Brooklyn Center is much closer. Well, Brooklyn Center is right on the edge of, North Minneapolis, right? And then after that you have Brooklyn Park. But if you want me to outline like all the borders, Brooklyn Park is big, and it'd be difficult for me to do that. But for like your lay person, I would say once you get in that area where you cross over 94, then you're squarely in Brooklyn Park. But right before that.
Okay. Well, what about the Walmart? What about the Walmart that's on 81? Is that Brooklyn Center?
So 81. Are you talking about where they were trying to put the Botna line, or?
Well, there's a Walmart there. I know I would get off on 94 to get to 81 and take a right,
Yep.
and you'd get to Walmart.
That Walmart, that Walmart.
If you went a half mile further, you'd be in Osseo.
That's Brooklyn Park. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Brooklyn Park. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, whenever I see folks running for office, especially Black folks in the community, Black people in the community, I think it's very interesting. I think, and this show, we don't really endorse anybody, and we haven't endorsed anybody in 12 years, but we do support. What's so funny? We do support your run. Is there a website where people can go and donate, Mr. Winston, to your campaign?
Yeah, we keep it. I try to keep it pretty simple. So it's my first and last name.org. So HOLLIESWINSTON.org. So that's the website.
Okay. What do you see, with the impending George Floyd trial case against the 4 Minneapolis police officers and the wide range of effect that it will have, not just for Minneapolis and St. Paul, but the surrounding suburbs? What is your message to the community?
Yeah, I agree that it was egregious misconduct. He should be thrown, Chauvin and I even think those who are kind of watching and should be thrown under the jail just because it people should feel safe, and they should feel safe in the streets. They should feel safe with law enforcement, right? And so I think that what happened there showed that Minneapolis has an extreme issue. What I would say to African Americans is that whatever you see in the justice system is a lagging indicator of all of the historical ugliness and racism that we have seen. So, I remember Rodney King and a lot of other things. And so for me, if it doesn't go the way I think it should go, unfortunately, I'm not surprised. because I'm 42. I've kind of seen how these things work. What what I always tell what I would tell my community, my my friends, my family, my children is um, grieve, get angry, but focus on the things that you can control. And so when you have a city like St. Paul with a mayor like Melvin Carter,
Yeah.
when you look at the city council, when you look at Minneapolis and everything that's going in Minneapolis, and then when you look at Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center, where we're 56%, people of color, look locally. Who can you put in office that will improve those relations, that will hold people accountable? Because the issue, the part of the issue, and I don't want to get too philosophical. Part of the issue is that
Please.
African Americans, we have been so hurt in many cases. We look at what our grandparents went through, and then the grandparents before that, and the history of slavery, and how folks are treated, and how Black women are treated when they go to emergency rooms, or when they have children, and all the inequalities. And so, for many of us, that adds up to us saying, well, the system isn't ours. We're not entitled to the system, or the system will never be ours. We'll never be part of the institutions that run this country. We'll never have an equal say. And so we kind of draw back, and then we're comfortable criticizing or coming up with institutions that are outside of it. And then we'll look at the Republicans and the Democrats and say, well, that's just trash, and I'm not going to get involved with that. But, the reality is you have official and unofficial institutions. And as an African American who descended from, the very beginnings of this country, we should have the opposite feeling of, no, every institution here, everything that's built, everything that helps make these important decisions, I have a right to be a part of that, and I will systematically fight to have a say at the table, right? So, which is
Right.
why when I see Black Republicans, I say, hey, I may disagree with a lot of what you say, but that's an institution. And we need folks in there that are fighting, that understand how that institution works, and that are putting ideas forth that help the community, right? So long story short is, I get the pain, I get the hurt, but I always say, look at the institutions that make these decisions. Get involved with those institutions. Do not think, especially in a state like Minnesota, where we're a small percentage, do not think you're going to walk up in there and immediately wield power, or that people are going to move in your best interest, right? You have to get in there and you got to throw some elbows. You have to know how the system works. You got to be a little crafty, and then you get to start making those decisions. But I always tell people, once you become part of the system, realize you're going to get criticism for being a part of that system, which I prefer that to being on the outside and having no say. So that's my long answer to your question, but that's how I look at it.
Okay, and this is my last question, because I know you have a busy schedule and you just came on last minute, and I didn't even give you 24 hours of prep time, but we will have another show, just you and I talking. But so I'm hoping that you get elected. I'm hoping that you win. I have my fingers crossed, my toes crossed. What would your first 100 days look like in office in Brooklyn Park?
Yeah, so I think it would be, and I always level set with people. So, Brooklyn Park is not like St. Paul, so it's not a strong mayor system, right? It's more like Minneapolis, where it's more of a weak mayoral system. And in Brooklyn Park, the mayor has the same. My vote counts as would count, not elected just yet, but would count just as much as the other city councilors. So for me, it's building a coalition, and so walking in there, realizing that not a lot of people. Not all of the city council prioritizes what I prioritize, right? But I think it's having those one-on-one discussions, building a rapport with people, helping people see where I'm coming from, helping to develop a agenda where we agree on and we move forward with, but also getting the community much more involved so that they understand what's going on at city council, and so that they can weigh in on what the agenda should be as well. Because I really do think it needs to be focused on COVID-19. Community policing, / reducing crime, and growing and bringing more small businesses. So I think if we do that, we can build a coalition. That's kind of a difficult agenda to fight against. So that would be, exactly what I'm doing. And those who disagree, they can disagree. But I think those are the items that the community is really interested in. So.
Okay, Anthony, do you have a question for Mr. Winston?
Just one follow-up, and again, I just applaud your efforts, and I mean, I certainly hope that things work out for the best for you, because it sounds like you put a lot of time in this and given it a lot of thought, and I think that that's one of the first things that you need to do. But what I wanted to ask is, maybe you don't know this quite yet, but what is the makeup of the police departments in Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center? I mean, do they have, I don't know the chiefs or any of the layout out there, but I mean, as we see in the different cities, how many, do they have police that community-oriented police? Do they have police that live in the community? Do they have people that are coming from St. Cloud, which is, the reality is too, these areas have really expanded. I mean, it's not unusual for someone to live in St. Cloud and work in Brooklyn Park or Brooklyn Center. I mean, that's not unusual at all. So I just wondered, what do you see, just kind of the tenor of the makeup of the police in those areas, if you have any observation of that?
So so I don't know the specific like racial breakdown, community breakdowns, but we do have some of that, where the police department doesn't look anywhere near what the city looks like, right? If you're 56% people of color, you'd want the police department to at least approach it, right? But it's I want to say overwhelmingly not people of color. And to me, that's something we have to work on. I know some of the criteria that they look at tends to sometimes screen us out, and sometimes I think some of the criteria that they're using isn't necessarily relevant to what we need in Brooklyn Park. So and then of course, there are folks that are, I'm not going to say St. Cloud per se, right? But there's folks that live in some of the outer suburbs, maybe from greater Minnesota, don't have a lot of roots in the metro area, that are working on the police department. And another issue is that we do get, good people of color, and even some of the white officers, right? They get hired away by Minneapolis or St. Paul, because Minneapolis, St. Paul may pay a little bit more, right? So we got a variety of issues that we have to work on when dealing with that. And that's I always tell people it's a lagging indicator of what we have seen historically, right? So it's something that we as a community have to get our arms around and have a discussion, and then just action. We have to move forward, right? Because at some point you talk something to death, so we have to move forward and push through that. And I just think the leadership and the will just have not been there in Brooklyn Park to address these issues. And I'll give a brief example. I don't want to overtalk this, but a brief example. I remember my wife and I were walking down Brookdale Drive. We were walking to a Walgreens up the street, and there was some there was a patrol car, and so we had just walked by. We were walking up, and there's a little bench, and there was some black youth, and one of the black youth stood up because I think he was getting ready to go get something, and the police stopped by, looked at us, and said, "Hey, is that kid a problem for you?" And when I kind of looked at the officer, and I said, I think he was just standing up, but I feel like I'm more than, and I was thinking to myself, I feel like I'm more than capable of body slamming this 16-year-old child if he's gonna step up to me, right? Like I think I got it, right? And so I just looked at him. My wife kind of looked at him like, no, we're not interested in throwing some child in jail because he stood up maybe a little aggressively, or he just has a scowl on his face. And so I think we have to get away from that type of policing. And then, we do have a city councilor out here who's running, and, a black youth came, stole his bike. He caught the black youth. And then he called the police on the black youth. And then he took a picture of the kid from behind and put it on Facebook, right? And so when you have a culture, and then he got his approbation from some of the very conservative folks in Brooklyn Park, those who are inclined to think that there's a bunch of super predators in Brooklyn Park. There isn't, right? But the community was kind of like, hey, what are you doing? And so I think, it's a cultural change that we have to kind of say that in Brooklyn Park, we get ahead of these things. It's much more of a community, neighborly feel. We give children the benefit of the doubt. And if we catch them doing things like that, if we are going to call the police, we're not going to put them on Facebook. But usually, kind of where I'm from, we would just kind of shake the kid and say, not again, don't come here again, because next time it's going to be a lot worse, right? So I just think it's a cultural thing that we have to get ahead of. We haven't really seen that in Brooklyn Park, and we haven't really seen leadership that says we want to create a school to job pipeline versus a school to prison pipeline, and that's where we need to be going in our city.
Okay, we agree with that. Well, we'd like to thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you coming on, and we'll schedule something like later in the summer here when everything gets hot and heavy. Again, if you'd like to donate to Mr. Winston's campaign, it's holliswinston.org, and you can go to the website. I'm pretty sure there's a big button there that you click, and we want to support our candidates, and we want you to support our candidates. Again, Our Black News does not really endorse one particular or any candidate, and any candidate that'd like to be on this show, you can certainly contact us via social media, email addresses. Half y'all got my phone number anyway, and Anthony's phone number. Call us. We'll schedule you on. We'll get you in here even if we have to do more shows. We're not just doing one side, left or the right, because we know these days it's who's on the top and who's on the bottom, basically. So again, Mr. Winston, we'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And we appreciate you popping in with us.
Good luck. Good luck, sir.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
But you'll be back. You'll be back soon, and we appreciate it. And have a great day. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. And Anthony, I want a book, so I'll follow up. Thanks, everybody.
You got
Anthony
it.
has the books. He has the books, like the argument.
Right.
He has the beef. Yeah. Okay.
Appreciate it, John.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Wow, that was pretty interesting. You know, we have Hollis Winston running for mayor of Brooklyn Center. We have a lot of folks, people of color, Black, Hispanic, Latino, Asian, across the spectrum, running for office in all these, you know, in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and these surrounding suburbs. And I just think it's time that we start to support them. Because if you look at the Somali community, they have tons of candidates running right now, all across the board, and they are being supported. And we also have to not only support them, but support our Black American candidates running for office here, you know, and I just think it's an important piece. Well, with that said, we need to segue, Anthony, because I received probably 7 calls this week about a shouting match that took place.
What?
Yes, in front of well, out in the street, basically, and it was between this guy here and another gentleman here. Let me just get his picture up, and he's a community business person, and these two, Mr. Tim Baylor, standing in front of his McDonald's franchise in Minnesota, and this gentleman, this Ward 5 city councilman, and it was very interesting to hear about this, and here goes some of the details that I received.
Please elucidate that. I had to enter my chair. I can't wait.
Okay, so rumor has it from several North Minneapolis stakeholders that Tim Baylor, the owner of McDonald's franchise over there on Broadway, right next to the closed McDonald's, that area, wants to do some redevelopment in North Minneapolis. Obviously, Mr. Baylor, an NFL great, has the ties, the connections, the financial capital to do these major reconstructive projects in North Minneapolis. I know that Tim Baylor, also called the Gentle Giant, is passionate about North Minneapolis. He wants North Minneapolis to prosper. He wants it to grow. He wants public safety issues looked at. And I guess there's some push and shove between Mr. Baylor and the Ward 5 city council person. And it's becoming an issue because there's some arguing going on, some public arguing. People, you don't know who you're around when you talk loud to folks. You don't know who knows who and how that information is going to get to these people. But I received several calls about a meeting that happened, and afterwards and before, how the high pitch rhetoric that was coming out of both gentlemen, with Baylor wanting to do something, and basically the Ward 5 city council person trying to put the kibosh on it. And if you look at Ward 5 and the leaders and the people that are in Ward 5, there's a very low learning curve, and people don't really understand that are sitting on Minneapolis City Council right now about development, about what's happening, about how to make these things work for the whole community. It was very interesting because Felipe Cunningham, I'm sorry, that's Cat Williams. City Councilman Felipe Cunningham posted something about trickle down. What is it? Trickle down public. Let me just get the exact word so I don't make a mistake here. Trickle down public safety. And we don't understand what trickle down public safety is about. What does that mean? Trickle down public safety. Anthony, do you have any insight on that?
I really don't. But Don, I do want to ask you if you have any insight, because I don't. I'm a lifelong Southside Minneapolis. I mean, I've always been Southside Minneapolis. I mean, that's all I've been. And so I don't know any of the background of a Mr. Cunningham. I don't know. Is he from the area? Did he grow up in North Minneapolis? Did he go to North High School, or did he play football at North or sports? Because I knew a lot of the sports people I grew up with, but I don't know what his affinity is to the North Side. Whereas Mr. Baylor, I remember his playing career because I'm an avid sports fan, as Mr. Edwards was, and we know that you're not. So I know Mr. Baylor's background, and I know that he's been building his business on the North Side and doing things to build up businesses on the North Side. So I don't know, but again, I don't know anything about Cunningham. I'm just wondering if you know who he is, where he come from. See, Don, you and I, we have families that have been here all of our lives. And
Yes.
So I just wonder what you might know about him that I don't. Maybe you can educate me.
Yeah, I mean, I know that he came out of nowhere and he did a very good campaign, and he did a good enough campaign to actually win his seat on the city council. So that's admirable. That's good. And again, I think these people are generally nice people. And I'm not going to talk negatively about anybody, but
no, that's not the point. I just wonder what his affinity is for the North Side. Does he love the North Side? Has he been there for a while? I just don't know. I don't know that. I suppose I could do my own research on that. I'm just asking you what you may know.
Well, I'm as lost as you are, because the things that I hear coming out of his mouth, like defund the police, and then all of a sudden he and two other city councils have private security at hundreds of thousands of dollars paid for by the city because someone doesn't like one of their Facebook posts or something, and says, oh, I'm being threatened because someone's put a frowny face or an angry face on my Facebook post. And then all of a sudden we hear that, while they're telling North Minneapolis and the general public all across Minneapolis and St. Paul defund the police, all of a sudden they have private security. So how does that work for the community? Anthony, I'm as lost as you are on this, because I really want to know, number one, what is trickle down public safety? Does that mean that the rich or the people that can afford it have community policing and the others have to just fend for themselves? Or is this some kind of policy that he's trying to develop? I know that he presented something to the charter, the community, some charter in Minneapolis. They have way too many charters in Minneapolis and St. Paul. But they presented something that would eliminate the police force. So how do you eliminate a police force in a city where the crime is just crazy? We have a lot of black on black crime in North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis.
Carjacking.
Yeah, and so they have, city of Minneapolis has a Department of Crime Prevention led by Miss Sasha Cotton. I don't know what they do. I've reached out to that department in Minneapolis to get them here on this show so that we can ask the hard questions, but they feel above reproach. They don't want to be here on this show. They don't want to answer the hard questions. So we as citizens of Minneapolis and St. Paul have to demand some kind of accountability from these elected officials and these departments in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the surrounding suburbs about how can you say defund the police? What is the replacement? What's going to happen when there's a crime? Are you going to send 2 social workers in a minivan to a possible dangerous, deadly encounter where someone might end up dead? Or are we going to retrain the police to the point that they're community liaisons for public safety? Here goes the deal. I don't think it's fair either side. I think the police are getting a bad deal. I think the community is getting a bad deal. And if you remember, Anthony, you're a South Minneapolis dude. I was born in St. Paul. We moved to South Minneapolis in 1971 as a kid, 4th grade. But when I was cutting up at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, before I got 18 years old, and I did something that alerted the police would roll up on us. And he would say, "Mr. Allen, what are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm out here popping firecrackers." You know, that's the extent of what we did back in the 70s, right?
I know.
Pop firecrackers, like M80s, and just ride our bikes around and we weren't doing criminal things, but the police had a connection, because the next thing he would say, go to your house. I need to talk to your mom. And they wouldn't just do that for me. They wouldn't just do that for me. Yeah. The police in Minneapolis. Thank you. The police in Minneapolis would not just do that for me. Every kid, yellow, red, black, and white in South Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Police Department had a relationship. My mom whooped my ass in front of a police officer because I was throwing M80s in someone's yard.
But Don, not to cut you off, Don, because you're right on. But not only with the police, but your neighbors knew that. Okay?
Yes. Yes.
The police knew that your parents had sway over you. And I'll give you a good example. My brother Walter, a great baseball player, okay? He used to throw rocks at cars. He's standing in front of my grandmother's house throwing rocks at cars. White man stops, runs up in the yard, and my grandmother comes up, and "What are you doing? What do you want?" "He's throwing rocks in my yard, at my car. He's throwing rocks." Grandmother says, "You know what? I'm going to take care of this." And the white man looked at her and said, "I believe you will. I believe you got this." And he turned around and left. Grandmother whooped him and then bought us balls and something, told us to go to Nicollet Park. You guys are too big to be throwing rocks and stuff. Just go to the park. My brother ended up going to Alabama State, being a top baseball player, coming back to Minneapolis, being a teacher at Minneapolis schools for 35 years and coaching baseball at Central and North, because they knew we could take care of ourselves. The police knew if they called your parents, their job was done. Okay?
Yeah. And just to get it correct, thank you, Ms. Patterson. And we want to get this absolutely correct. Cunningham is the Ward 4 councilman, and Ellison, of course, is the Ward 5. We do have some people running, like Crystal Porter. I'm trying to get her on the show. I think she's a little gun shy of us, but that's okay. She'll get on eventually. I'll talk her into it. And thank you for that, Ms. Patterson. But we have challenges here where, like Mr. Wallace says here, we have people with no business or problem-solving skills that are elected to these. But, the people put them in office. And it needs to stop being celebrity-based and turn it to problem-solving based. Again, I think, and I said this earlier, I think the police are getting a bad rap. The community don't get the right public safety. And then all these folks are sitting here going like, well, what should we do? What should we do? What happens? And so there's no accountability. There's no accountability for any of it. So now we have police officers that are terrified of our community because they don't have any relationships. Then we have a community that's terrified of the police, but rightfully so. Because if I can't watch the George Floyd video anymore, okay, because that is gut-wrenching. To see this guy dead on the ground from this police officer's action, That's
Lifeless.
the image.
Lifeless.
That's the image that we have when we think about police in Minneapolis and St. Paul. That's the image that goes through our head. So if they're going to kill us, and I'm not saying all police officers are salty and bad, but I'm saying that I've had experiences, Anthony. You've had experiences. Other people in the community have had experiences that didn't go so well. And so how do we change that dynamic? Because what's going to happen this summer? What's going to happen after March 8th, when this George Floyd stuff starts happening? It's going to get ugly. And you're going to see boards go up on business windows. I mean, and there are going to be people that are not going to listen to any logic. There are going to be people that.
If Don, it's a leadership thing, Don. I mean, like I was saying earlier with the Chauvin, everybody has seen what happened. We saw what he did. There are eyewitnesses to this crime. There's eyewitness to this. There's no need to keep dragging this thing out and continuing to drag us through all of this stuff when we've seen what happened with that. And as far as the police, we need to really. I'll give you an example, just a quick one. My wife, I would never really ride with her because I didn't think she could drive. Okay, I would never. She just So she's coming home from work, and there's a school bus a couple blocks away, and she's impatient, so she goes around the school bus, but they had the stop sign out. Police pull her over. So did you know that this is a moving violation? You got to stop. Blah blah blah. She gives the license to the police.
Yeah.
The police looks at the license and says, "Do you know Anthony Scott?" She said, "That's my husband." The police gives her his card and said, "Tell him to call me, okay? And I'm going to give you a warning." I graduated from college with this dude. Okay. I graduated from college with Malcolm. Mm-hmm. But I'm saying that type of community, this was no big deal. Nobody was hurt. You didn't have to get a ticket. You didn't have to be brought downtown. You know what I mean? Those are the kind of things that we have to be able to do as police to de-escalate this stuff. There's so many things that they don't have to bring people in. They don't have to handcuff them. They don't have to put their knee up for all these frivolous things. And that's where the whole mindset, it needs to be changed. And one other just quick one on that. When we had a Black History Month program 2 or 3 years ago, and we had Commander Charles Adams come in to talk about, and this was right after the Philando. He came in to talk about keeping family, and he came in with your good buddy Ron Edwards. And so Ron, when people saw Ron, everybody was like, "Uh-oh, what's going to happen now?" And Ron didn't say anything. He just sat and listened. But then when I got questions, I said, "Ron, I got to ask. I can't have you sit here, Ron, and not have you participate." He said, "I want to ask Commander Adams one question. Why don't they have more Black women on the Minneapolis police? They don't have no Black women on the men." And at that point, they had just gotten rid of the last female Black police officer in St. Paul. So they didn't have any.
Yeah.
And so Mr. Adams said, "You know what? It's the testing. Because they make these women come in and run 5 miles in 3 minutes or whatever." He said, "There ain't no officer on the force that can do that." Okay? But see, that's where the gatekeepers and they let these things keep going until somebody calls it out and fixes it. And that's why we need people to do it. And hopefully people like the guest we had, who seems to be very enlightened about what community needs, we can move ahead in those areas.
Yeah. And, it's very important that the community, I'm not telling anybody to stand down, but we have to really start reading and look at what's going on, even with the legislature. There's a lot of things up for renewal, for lack of a better word, but we really don't have a Black legislative agenda for Minnesota. And I know people might say that, "Oh, why does there gotta be a Black legislation for Black people?" Well, I can point to like 100 different things, and I hope that you're not ignorant.
Who else is going to do it if we don't do it? Okay.
Yeah, who else is going to do it? And so we're looking at this stuff, and we're seeing that organizations like there's this Teacher of Color program, and I got to talk about this real quickly here. And it's out of Metro State. It's led by a guy named Paul Spies. He's a nice guy. He's a white guy. He's a nice guy, but he's at the table for millions of dollars to increase teachers of color. And like you said about the testing with the police officers, the problem is not a money problem. It's a policy problem. It's a testing problem. And I'm not saying that Black people can't pass teaching tests. I have, okay? I'm saying that the way they got to have it set up, it doesn't recognize your talents, your skill, or your history, or your success, or you achieving tenure. And they keep wanting to tax you on these test things to say, oh, Black person, you can't pass this test, Hispanic, Latino, and it's not even written in language that is conducive to anything that anybody's teaching in the classroom. And so the community, parents are in charge of their kids' education. There's laws already in effect. Minnesota Statute 119A. Read that whole thing. Minnesota Statute 120A. Read that whole thing. Then we have the Page Amendment. The Page Amendment basically wants to put it on the ballot. It basically says, and I'm paraphrasing, is a quality education Minnesota a right? Vote yes or no. Well, we already know that's going to be yes overwhelmingly, but what happens afterwards? You know, there's a lot of strange things going on, and I think parents need to be concerned about what's happening in Minnesota education, because there's some usual suspects, especially these unions, that are trying to derail the Black body, the people of color in education, not only teachers, but the students. I mean, why would you screw over a student? I have several students that said, Mr. Allen, you're the first Black teacher I ever had. And they're seniors in high school in St. Paul. And I'm like, what? And I'm saying, how can that happen in 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018, 2018, et cetera? How does that still happen?
It happens because we've been lax. It happens because we've been lax in pushing our own agenda. This is why these things happen, Don, because we don't push our own agenda. That's ridiculous. Never saw a Black teacher. Come on.
Yeah. And so, I mean, it's just these little things that are happening that I think, you know, for me, the community should pay close attention to right now, because there's a lot of folks at the state capitol that don't have your interests in mind. This is a legislative session. Anybody that has an idea can call the revisor's office and tell the revisor, hey, I want a bill to do X, Y, Z. This is what I wanted to do. This is how I see fixing the community. And it is their duty, the revisor's office, is to develop that language for you to carry to your elected officials. If Bobby Joe Champion, Senator Bobby Joe Champion represents you, you should have the ability to carry your bill to him and say, hey, I want you to carry this, and explain it to him. Don't get upset with him. Don't be upset, you know, don't be pissed off. Go talk to the man. Talk to these new Black elected officials, which in the House and in the Senate, which is their first year. You know, I've been on Zoom meetings 3 times this week with the chair of the Senate Education and Finance Committee, and I've talked to him on the phone, Senator Roger Chamberlain. Good guy. But he's seen stuff that doesn't make any sense. And one of the biggest complaints out of the state capitol is that millions of dollars are allocated that says that we're going to help these people of color in Minnesota, the Black youth, the Black businesses, the Black this, the Asian, the Hispanic, Latino. Nothing ever comes out of it. And so next year, these same people are back at the state capitol jogging for money, jogging for cash again. This has to stop. You know, there are some good things out there. There's the Modern Classroom Project. There's Stripes University. There's the Black Man Teach program. There's the Suitor program out of St. Paul Public Schools. Minneapolis has a program. There are programs already there that will do what we need them to do. But yet we have the privileged folks in our community that don't look like us at the table, in tune to get millions and millions of dollars that we will never see, that will never help us. So how is it that we're not there? I've called the Council on Black Minnesotans, which is now the Council of Minnesotans of African Heritage or something like that. And I said, what is our legislative agenda? And it was very hard. Well, the girl told me we don't have one. She told me this over the phone. So this is like the first year in many years. Now it's not the first year. In the last few years, again, we don't have a legislative piece at the state capitol. And it's really terrible because the only thing that we get, and you'll see it on social media and Facebook when people start inviting you to a day on the Hill, people go up there and just take pictures with these elected officials and put them on their Facebook pages. There's no policy discussions, you know, there's no ways to, there's no conversations about how to change the dynamics or the trajectory of Black Minnesotans. And it's really terrible that we fall for that okie doke, you know?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, no, it's Don, you know, you're just right on spot with that, you know, Don, because we have to bring it down to a level of, you know, we talk about education. One of the first things that I always looked at when I'm talking about my boys, okay? I talked about who's teaching them. You know, they went to a little school, Don, it's called Pilgrim Lutheran. I don't know if you're familiar with Pilgrim, but it's part of the church on like 39th and Stevens and First Avenue. And there's like 7 or 8 kids in the room there. The teachers would come to your house every summer and tell you what they're going to do, tell you what the curriculum is. And so the kids would see the teachers in the house with us. They knew if they acted up, all the teachers were going to do was call us. They were on notice. And then when my son, the oldest one, got to 5th grade, the teacher came and said, look, we're going to teach him we're going to teach algebra. He's going to fail. He's an A student, but he's not going to know how to do this. This is going to be hard for him. But this is going to help him later in life. See, and this is what really teaching is about. And this is where we've gotten so far away from getting the right people, getting the right teachers, people that are dedicated to showing these kids a way and guiding them to the next steps. See, that's what an education is. It's not you're here today and you blah, 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 but it's guiding you to the next steps. And this is what's so devoid that I see. I mean, there's no schools in the neighborhood. There was all kind of schools in this neighborhood I live in. There's no high school.
Yeah.
All the Black people used to, I watched them, it's all white, it's all white kids. It's all white kids now.
Yeah.
It's like they're just pushed away from education. But they keep taxing me. They keep taxing me like for schools. I look at my tax bill, it keeps going, well, where is the school? And so this is where we have to continue in the process and fight for this. And Don, I'm going to have to get out of here.
Yeah, understandable.
Because I have another program. Quickly, I just have another program. If you go to the Minneapolis Public Library site, we are doing a Zoom meeting that's going to be led by 2, 3, 4 Black doctors. We're going to talk about COVID. We're going to have a discussion about the vaccine. We're going to have this aversion that Black people have to a vaccine. Don, I haven't taken the vaccine. I don't know if you have or what your feelings are, if your family's taking it, if your kids are taking it. I'm still trying to process this. So we're having this meeting, 11 o'clock. If you go on the Minneapolis Library site, you'll be able to register. You got to register to join the program. You'll be able to ask questions. So
thank you.
That's my next move.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. It is 10:30, and I just like to say our program and this platform is $42 a month. And anybody that would like to support Our Black News and our other platforms that would like to donate $2 or $3, whatever, we don't really need that much, and we don't get paid for doing this. And anything that is donated goes directly to Restream, our Blog Talk radio show, and some other platforms that we use on premium to get this distributed around the country. We appreciate our thousands of viewers outside of Facebook and on YouTube and a couple other platforms. And you have an opportunity to support community journalism by Cash Apping Our Black News. We greatly appreciate it. So we also like to thank Hollis Winston for joining us today. Again, his website is www.holliswinston.org. He's running for mayor of Brooklyn Park. Hopefully here we can get some more candidates on. But again, thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll have some more on the Ward 5 and Ward 4 over in North Minneapolis City Council race, and maybe get some candidates over here on our show to speak with you. So with that said, thank you, Anthony Scott. We know that Jonathan Mason is on assignment. He should be back next week.
Jonathan.
Yeah, have a great week. We appreciate you, and thank you for listening to Our Black News.
Love you. Yes, we appreciate you, Dan. We love you.